The Seminole Headlines, 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. It's just these two guys, these two gorgeous guys today. Yep. That's all you get, buddy. No Irish fella. That's Corey Clark. I'm Jeff Cameron. You're you, and you're here, and we appreciate it. Soldier on. When one of our compatriots is out of the picture, we try to find a way. We try to do it. You know? Hey, somebody has to go over there and cover this team going through a magical run, Corey, in the ACC tournament. Right?
So is the math that they have to win 5 in a row? They have to win 5 games in 5 nights, right? Like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, and then they're the ACC champs.
Seems easy enough.
Seems doable.
Yeah.
Seems doable.
I mean, you've seen so much evidence this year that's in them.
Yeah. So what a great day that would be for Register Sausage. Think about that promo code. 5 wins in 5 nights for Leonard.
I was going to say, how are we going to get there? Yay, sausage! And boy, what a time that would be. Register Sausage, registersausage.com. And as Ira likes to point out when we do this plug, rightfully so, these guys are awesome and continue to grow thanks to the huge amounts of listeners over the years that have added to the bottom line for the Register Sausage. That's what we've done for Ben and the fine folks at Register Sausage. They continue to spread their wings in states throughout the Southeast, and you can get it shipped anywhere, so that's a good thing. And in fact, Ben just got done saying really nice things about his relationship with Seminole Headlines. So I know.
To who? Just at a restaurant or something? Where was he at?
He told somebody that I know that this has been the best partnership in the history of partnerships.
No duh. No duh, Ben. No duh. I will say this, and Stephanie the other day when we were eating registers for breakfast, because we do a lot, she's like, you know what? Why don't you get free registers? Why don't you get free registers as much as y'all do for them? And I'm like, babe, we're not about that life.
No.
We're not about that life. We're not going to ask for freebies, but I guess this is my way of asking for freebies because it's really good. And the Publix by my house is sold out a lot of times.
Good.
So that was the complaint actually, is we were having to eat another type of sausage because we couldn't buy the registers at the Publix by my house. Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous.
Say it ain't true.
It wasn't Jimmy Dean. It was Jimmy Crap. It was Jimmy Crap. So don't eat that anymore, folks. Eat Register Sausage.
All right. So you were at the press conference, and Luke did I want to point something out about Luke, who was on the show yesterday, who had the press conference yesterday, who, did what you should do in an opening press conference, is strike the right notes and hopefully have some sort of semblance of a plan. But did you notice this is a shrewd man? Corey, he compliments you before he answers your question.
Right. Yep.
He comes on.
Don't float over the compliment.
Hold on, I'm going to get there.
Oh, okay, great.
Let me set the scene for people who didn't hear, but this is my favorite part. Like, this is how, Luke came to Tallahassee with a plan.
Yeah.
So Corey's about to ask him a question, and then Luke says, boy, Corey, you've lost a lot of weight. You look great.
Yeah.
And then Corey says, well, thank you for noticing, and then jokes back, I've got the $50 for you afterwards and all that good stuff, right? Which is well done, Luke. Well done. Butter up Corey Clark. Butter up Ira Scheffel as well. Then he comes on the Jeff Cameron show, and the first thing he does is tell everybody that he went to Gordo's for a Cubano and for fries and extra Gordo sauce.
Man, well, come on now.
So you see where this guy's going.
Yeah. Look, he understands the lay of the land. You and I and Ira are, we're kingmakers. We got Bobby Bowden fired because we were done with it, right? We got Link hired. We're kingmakers. Leonard. Well, Leonard might have been more about he doesn't go to the tournament anymore, but still, we're kingmakers. We're also king slayers. So he knows the deal and he knows the lay of the land. It's smart for him to butter us up. And look, I don't care if he goes 8-22 next year. I'll always have that moment at the press conference where he's shouting me out in front of everyone. How much better I look, how good I look, not how much better I look, how good I look. So that was a smart, you're right, shrewd by Luke.
Very shrewd. He came in firing. He knew who to butter up, who to curry favor with right off the bat. He knew right. He's like, Corey's going to ask me a question. This will be my chance.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure I'm nice to Ira as well. Make a little joke about how I wasn't a really good player. and then
right.
you know, and get the room laughing a little bit. Then I'm gonna go on Cameron's show, even though I'm exhausted, and opening segment, and come on and just tell him about how I rolled over to Gordo's because I know that's his big sponsor. So
Sure.
like he knows the deal, right?
Yeah, I brought this up on Wake Up Warchant, and I think it's a pretty interesting point in the sense that, you know, I would say you and I in our lifetimes, because we've been going to games since we were in elementary school or even before that,
right?
We've probably met. I don't know, man. I would say we met or we know there are people in our orbit, 500, 1,000 people that we would literally say they care more about Florida State football, the history, the tradition, the future even, than Mike Norvell, because you grew up with it. It's a passion. It's not a job. You know, he grew up in Texas. I'm sure he grew up a Florida State fan, but he grew up in Texas. It's not a vital part of his life like it is for you and I when we were growing up, or a lot of people that we know, your dad, my dad,
right?
Their friends. But when you flip that to basketball, is there anybody that cares more about Florida State basketball than Luke Loucks? You know what I mean? There's not a great passion base for Florida State basketball, but I can promise you there is for that guy.
Yeah, that's a good point, Corey. Yeah, you can meet somebody who maybe loves it as much, few and far between, but you're not going to find anybody who cares more. You're right about that. And I think that resonated yesterday for sure. And, you know, you and I over the years, as well as Ira and any of us that have covered these programs and these coaches, have often noted that it's not a prerequisite that you be a Florida State guy to have success. I mean, we've seen lots of non-Florida State people have success here in a variety of sports. And I always hated it that at North Carolina, when they were going to go about the process of hiring people, they were, you got to get a Carolina guy. You got to get no, you don't. You got to hire the best coach possible. But Florida State's
like Roy Williams,
right?
Three-time national champ, Roy Williams.
Just roll it out there with that slapdick, huh? but here's the thing: Florida State's unique. This situation was unique. The options that you have, and I'm not trying to diminish or besmirch the hiring of Luke Loucks, but obviously they were not going to bring in three of the biggest names in college basketball that were on the market. For this job. They can't afford it. They all but admitted to it yesterday, right? We know what Florida State basketball is. Frankly, in this town, it's third. It's behind baseball.
Especially when it's not good. When 18, 19, 20, it was number 2 with a bullet. Like it was a big deal, but it was selling out that place. But these past 2 years, yeah, you would say it's probably third on campus.
Oh, easily. And much of my time, I came to Tallahassee in 1991. Baseball's been ahead of basketball a lot. Not always. Those early 90s, that basketball program was great too.
Yeah.
But for long stretches of time, it was always football and then baseball and then basketball to some extent. And I don't know that it's ever going to be a place that people flock to see basketball. You're right. It was humming. And, you know, post-COVID, things just went south, and we kind of figured that might happen, unfortunately, with the changing landscape of the sport. But I sure would like to see that passion and the love of the sport and like a buy-in again from the community. Luke's got a chance because it sounds like to me he understands that they're going to have to be much more forward with community engagement. He gets that he's got to press the flesh and try to find money in places where they haven't found money before because they don't have the investment from the university. I documented that last week and brought up a lot of points about how far down the list basketball has been for this athletic department. Now, Corey, one thing I will ask you, and I'm kind of curious your thoughts on this, they don't have that luxury anymore. Like you now have a success initiative in which basketball can help you bridge the gap. You've got to make money. You can't just be over here meandering about in mediocrity. Like you got to start going to the tournament now. It makes you money. It bridges the gap.
Yeah, but to what at what expense though? If you've got a budget for what you're going to spend on NIL and you're going to spend on coaching staff and players. Look, man, yes, you want to keep winning the tournament. Or you want to go to the tournament. You want to win basketball games, but not at the expense of a defensive end. You know what I mean? Like these are the calculations they have to make really for the next 3 or 4 years, because as important it is now for basketball, these next 3 years are 3 of the most important years, 3 or 4 years that Florida State football has ever had.
Yeah.
So you've got to be good at football. Basketball, you can meander a little bit if you have to, but you cannot be good at basketball at the expense of football. And I don't think they ever would be anyway. That Florida State doesn't operate like that. The beauty of Luke is that, or we hope the beauty of Luke is that he has a system. He knows what his system is, and he doesn't have to go get Scotty Barnes's to go win games. Because frankly, he even admitted it in his press conference on Monday. He's not recruiting those guys. He's not going to even try. He's not going to recruit against Kentucky and Duke for the guys that are making as much as he is. It's not happening. So he wants to recruit the state of Florida, and he's going to try to just hammer the portal. And with his system, if he can find like one or two really good players and then some shooters and guys that buy in, maybe he has a chance to grow this thing to when 2030, 2029 comes around, and maybe they are in another conference or they know they're heading to another conference. He'll have this place in a position where they can really spend money and go compete for, like, I don't know, championships. I mean, that's not out of the realm. And the thing about Luke, man, is what's cool about him, I think, is he knows it can be done here. He did it.
Yeah.
He was here when it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and I say this with all due respect, he wasn't a great player.
No, correct.
And he was part of a collection of guys that did that and had that success. So he knows how that can be built. And I do think the timing on this is really good because you've got a guy with real connections to agents and scouting departments throughout the NBA who are constantly surveying the landscape of college basketball and saying, all right, you know what? That's a player that would fit in our system in a year or two when the draft rolls around. We kind of like the way that guy plays. And he knows all of these guys, and he knows a ton of college coaches and a ton of scouts and a ton of agents. And those are the kinds of guys where you call in favors and say, who are you guys looking at? What do you like? Well, there's a kid at Tulane that we can't use, but he would fit your system really well, Luke. Yeah. And word is he's going to transfer. He's a forward. I think he fits your system really well. You might want to take a look at that guy. You may want to take a look at that guy that's leaving Drake. Their point guard can really do the things that you want. I know the system you run. We're friends. I'm telling you, that's a guy I would reach out to. I think he's going to be in a good position to get the kind of information he needs to shake the trees and find these kinds of players you're describing.
Yeah, but he's got to kind of, he's got to work, smarter, not harder, right? Like he's got to figure out a way to make this work. He got a chance that just because of the situation, the fact that football needs a lot of money, a giant at this university just retired. He's kind of sliding into where this isn't a job. There's no way Luke Loucks, if Leonard would have retired after the 21 season when they lost to Michigan in the Sweet 16 with Scotty Barnes, Luke Loucks isn't getting the job in 21-22. It's just not happening. After three straight, is it 3 or 4 straight bad years?
4.
4 straight bad years, mediocre, and then there was an awful one in there. And the lay of the land when it comes to football, you can take a shot like this. This is a wild card, man. We have no idea. None. We know him. We have a history with him. We watched him here, but we have no idea if he can be a head coach. But there's a lot of people you don't know. We didn't know Steve Kerr could be a head coach. There's a lot of people you don't know can be a head coach till they're a head coach. I think he talked about on your show, Todd Golden, that he had a relationship with him. That guy was an assistant at San Francisco, then became the head coach, and now might win the flipping national championship with that team. Yeah. So it's not saying he can't do it. We just don't know if he can do it. But he's getting a great chance and an opportunity that I don't know, quite frankly, he has the resume for.
Yeah.
But he has the pedigree, I guess, because he hasn't been doing it long enough. But he could be awesome, and this might end up being a great move for this university. I'm really interested / excited just to see how he attacks the next month. His staff, what he puts together, and the kind of players he gets out of the portal. Our college, do they even have a commitment, Jeff? Do you know? Do they have like a high school commitment?
Well, that I don't know, and I'd have to check. I'm sure they probably do, but who knows? Now everything's up for grabs, right? So he's got to figure that out. By the way, I thought about it yesterday when he said this. That cracked me up, and when he was talking about Todd Golden, imagine being a part of a men's league and those two jokers walk out on the same team. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Oh, well, great, guys. Yeah, I'm 53 years old. I'm in the men's league. I got to go against 2 college basketball players.
This guy was playing in Belgium a few years ago. Yeah.
I mean,
thank God you get to scratch your competitive itch with me. I got 2 bad knees.
Like, what are we doing over here, man? I got 6'5", former ACC point guard, and I got this guy over here who's played. Yeah, I mean, these guys are professional basketball players. I'm at the Y.
Yeah, this isn't fun. The beauty of Luke though is I'm not. He might literally be, when you think of Leonard Hamilton and the players he recruited. Luke was being self-effacing on Monday when he was talking about it, but he wasn't a great basketball player.
No.
Like, I think Ira said you were a really good basketball player, and Luke pushed back. It was like I was an average basketball player. Well, no. You might have been an average basketball player for an ACC point guard.
It's relative.
Yeah, you were not an average basketball player for people on Earth.
Right.
But think about, because he was slow. For a Leonard Hamilton recruit, he might have been the slowest guard he ever recruited. Right?
Right.
Maybe the least athletic guard he ever recruited. And again, he's a good athlete. He could have played quarterback in college. This is all relative. But and he talked about it. He's like, I knew I was slow. So I had to plan and we pressed. And so I had to scout who I was going to, and I had to know where my help was. And we had to communicate. He had to make, he had to do things with his mind that other people, obviously Tony Douglas didn't.
Corey,
David Stolkes didn't, because David Stolkes was a better athlete, but he had to be more of a thinking man's point guard because he wasn't blessed with incredible athleticism.
Think of all the great players or all the average to below average players, again, not taking shots, that we've seen gone on to be great coaches, and how many awesome players we've seen be terrible coaches.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. They don't understand why you don't see it the way they see it, or why you can't do I don't know if he would be, but it seems to me Michael Jordan would be the worst coach in the world.
Yes. Yeah.
He'd be like, what are you doing?
Why aren't you just double pumping, letting the guy float by and then hitting the jumper, you idiot?
Yeah. Why didn't you just dunk on him?
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, why would you just not jump up and dunk on him?
Why do you keep missing? Why do you keep missing shots?
Yeah, all these misses are not the way I drew this up. Yeah, like most of the guys that really had to work and think the game become your better coaches. So that's exactly right. I do think it's helpful for Luke in that way. I also think it's certainly helpful to have been around the guys he's been around. Yeah, I love the way that he talked about, Kerr and Brown and Monty Williams and all these other guys. He's got friends in high places, man. This should be helpful. I would think.
That's smart too. What he did, I thought what he did on Monday, not only just buttering me up and Chris Nee and Ira, and he said great question a lot too, which I think is a good way to ingratiate yourself. But when people might question your resume, like I just did 7 minutes ago, or your pedigree. Well, but he also, it's name dropping with a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like Steve Kerr's name kind of rings out. That kind of rings out a little bit. Mike Brown has been a head coach forever in the NBA. That matters. Knowing Todd Golden, knowing the coach at BYU, like he's right. Like the basketball it's a lot of people in that, but it's a pretty small community, and they all kind of know each other, especially at that level. So let people know that are have a little trepidation about this hire, about who you have rubbed elbows with, who you do know, where you learned where you got some of your knowledge from. I think the being the head coach with the Nets now, the fact that he was on a staff with him for a year or two, being at the Suns, all that stuff matters, man. It just, I think he even name dropped Did he name drop the owners of the Warriors?
He did. And listen, they're considered one of the great ownership groups when he was there, right? Yeah. So, no, it was smart of him to do that. And you're right, because I think he recognizes a lot of people are going to go, wait a minute, he's never been a head coach. What am I supposed to do with this guy? They're like, well, wait a minute, I coached the Nigerian national team. I coached here. With this guy. I was responsible for helping, De'Aaron Fox become a better defensive player and all this. That's smart. Yeah, definitely bring that up. Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV continues in a moment. I know we didn't mention it, and we don't have to totally get away from basketball just yet because there is a brand new head coach, and that was fun yesterday to talk about. But Florida State does finally start to play real people in baseball. Yeah. And it begins tonight. And
pretty big leap up.
Yeah, to say the least. Yeah. And after Boston College just got done winning the series against Virginia, you realize, like, okay, here we go. We got Florida followed by BC. So I would ask the big picture question, Corey, because I think we think the same thing about this baseball team. We think they're good with a long way to go. Like they got to get a lot better.
They do. You really like what you've seen from the starting pitching, which is, it's a pretty. I don't know if you know much about baseball, Jeff, but having good starting pitching is a nice piece to a puzzle.
Seems to matter.
It seems to matter. But I still don't know what to make of the lineup. Max Williams is even though he hit a ball 400 feet for a home run and then stared down the umpire on Friday night because he's Max Williams. He's Max Williams, Jeff. What are you
going to do? On?
Yeah.
Why are you cursing at umpires and second basemen in 8-run games on a Tuesday? Like, can we not do this anymore?
No, of course that ain't stopping. If that was going to stop, it would have stopped last year. That's how he's wired, Jeff. But and they moved Miles Bailey up in the lineup, and he went 4 for 5 when they moved him up to 5th. But what I think is cool about tonight's game is that Miles Bailey, B.J. Gibson, I think Evan Crest is pitching.
Yes.
Gage Harrelson, even though he's a veteran college baseball player, they've never felt Hauser like it's going to feel tonight. They've never been in a baseball game anywhere close to the energy that's going to be in that stadium tonight. And I'm not saying that as to like there's a lot of pressure on them. Go deliver. Don't melt in the moment. You might melt in the moment, or you might squeeze the bat into sawdust. That stuff does happen. But get some reps with an environment like this because it's coming. If this team is as good as we hope it can be, you're going to have a super regional game where you're going to have that electricity in that field. You're going to have a home game, regional game, where the crowd is going to be into it and there's going to feel pressure. It's good for guys like that to get this out of their way, to get it out of the way kind of early in the season, just to let their body get used to feeling what that stadium is going to feel like. Because it's unique when it's Florida, especially it's unique when they're both top 10 teams and you're 15-0. But it's going to be a crazy energy in that crowd, I feel like. Whether they respond to it or don't, I think either way, it's a good learning experience moving forward.
Kind of crazy, Corey. I think I saw that this is the first matchup where both teams are in the top 10 since 2019.
Wow, really?
I would not have guessed that.
Well, last year, remember, Florida was in the top 10, even though they kept losing, and Florida State was like 16-0 and 15th in the country.
Yeah, at one point, Florida was 2-13 and was ranked number 2 in the country. It was the silliest thing in the world. Yeah. We're like, what are we doing here? But
hey, how about my man Cags now? I don't know what his average is, but I feel like every time I'm on Twitter, he's hitting another home run in spring training.
Well, I figured you'd be monitoring closely.
He's been great. I don't know how Tibbs or Cam Smith are doing, but my man Cags.
You monitor Cags the way I did Skeens when I knew the Pirates were actually going to draft him. But
that guy's clutch.
But by the way, lest we forget, since we're referencing the matchup here with Florida State beat the bejesus out of Florida last year, beat the brakes off the Gators, swept the University of Florida a year ago. There was all kinds of just get you some.
Well, they run-ruled them twice.
Yeah, it was glorious because Lord knows Florida State had been on the wrong end for a very long time. Seriously, that wasn't for nothing, man. That mattered, and it went a long way, I think, in people suddenly being able to puff out their chest again with Florida State baseball. It was a glimpse of what was to come, which was that Florida State had a battering ram for an offensive lineup and proceeded to be one of the best 4 or 5 teams in the country the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument, probably a good one, that they were the second best team in the country last year. And
I would make that argument,
if Cam Leiter had been healthy, last year might have been the year, quite honestly. And Link even said that. I think he was talking about Cam last week.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about, now, do I ever think about what our team would have been last year with Cam Leiter? He's like, yeah, I do. Or maybe it was in the preseason or something, but he did make that point. And I'm like, yeah, that's a really good point, Link. That team with Cam Leiter, maybe let's put it this way. I don't know if you beat Tennessee anyway, because you would have started Arnold in that game no matter what. Cam Leiter would have impacted that. But maybe you're not the 8th seed. So you don't open with Tennessee.
Well, and also if you win that game and you're a check swing away from winning it, you probably win the national title.
You could, yeah. I mean, it's hard to say that because it's Florida State, but they would have had a nice leg up on everybody else.
Yeah, and they were really good.
They were, but you're still sweating that first game against Tennessee, beating them twice in a mat where you had like Tennessee had to beat Florida State once. Even if you only had to beat Tennessee once and they had to beat you twice, that ain't a guarantee. That Tennessee team was
but I'd say I think you can make the argument as you just did that they were one of the best two teams in the country. And if you think they're one of the best two teams in the country and they win that first game,
yeah, and you get Arnold again. You get to pitch Arnold again at some point while you're out in Omaha. Yeah, man, that was a very good team even without. And that's the thing that's different about this team is that last year at this time, maybe it was right around this time, whenever Cam got hurt, I literally don't even remember who were their Saturday and Sunday starters for a lot of the ACC. I can't remember because it wasn't Dorsey right away. Dorsey was the closer. He's the one that came in and lost to Clemson.
But when they finally did elevate him,
was great. But I'm saying through the meat of the ACC season, at least through like the first 3 or 4 weekends into I feel like the middle of April, I can't remember who their Sunday guy was, and I can't remember who their Saturday guy was. And it wasn't Dorsey. It was Arnold and then a bunch of like TBAs.
Well, then for a while they were trying with Ben Barrett, and he got hurt.
So my point is like this, if it stays and they stay healthy, this starting trio is a big improvement over last year's trio for the majority of the season. And we don't know exactly what Mendez and Vellini are yet because they haven't faced great hitters, but you feel pretty good about them. They all three know how to pitch. And
so does Crest.
Yeah. So I think although the offense isn't going to be nearly as good as what last year's was, the pitching is better right now. If it stays healthy, it's better, and then maybe that ends up being a bigger deal anyway.
I think it does. I like that you have a bona fide fourth in the rotation here, if you will, in Crest. Evan's been good, man. I feel like, he's your Tuesday night guy, and he's a good one. He's not somebody you're just throwing out there.
Yeah.
He's not just part of a Johnny Holstaff approach. I mean, Crest could go 4 2/3, 5 2/3 tonight, and then you patch it together from there. That's the other part, Corey, that I think there's been some welcome surprises. Like, who the hell thought that BJ Gibson was going to be this good already?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy didn't get any ABs in the fall whatsoever, hasn't played baseball in over a year, and all of a sudden he's like a 2-hit machine every time he goes out there. Bat speed for days. He's certainly an all-uniform guy. You look at that guy, he's a freak of an athlete. But then and you may have a superstar on your hands in Miles Bailey. You might have a complete superstar. But I would say that those are the nice surprises. I don't know if Miles is a surprise, but certainly BJ is. But I would say that the one downside is I don't think I trust this bullpen at all.
It hasn't been. There are guys to trust. The Martinez has been good. Prescott has been good. Holtz has been non-existent, and they need him to get right because it's not like they have a lot of lefty options in the bullpen. They need him to get right or quit getting on the mound. And then Barrett, too, and Abraham. I think those three guys are guys you like a lot. You thought you liked a lot to start the season that have really struggled. So, or struggled for Florida State's purposes. So hopefully they can turn that around. Martinez and Prescott are guys that, and Joe and Charles are guys that have pitched really well, but it's like you don't want to just ride three dudes. That's not what this team was built on. It's supposed to have eight legitimate guys down there in the bullpen, and 3 of them just haven't pitched all that well so far.
When I interviewed Mike Capozzi before the start of the year, the thing that he was most excited about, I swear, I think he went through 9 guys that he thought were options or at least 8, like you said. They had a bunch of guys that they felt like, hey, you know what? At one point, I think and I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to the extent of, my fear is sometimes you fall in love with somebody and you don't give somebody else a chance who you know's got good stuff, and you get into the rut of not giving guys opportunities. And he's like, I don't want to do that because I feel like all these arms are plus. I just haven't seen the bevy of arms that he was referencing that we can rely on. I've seen a few, and you just got done naming a couple, but I haven't seen guys where I'm like, oh, Okay. Well, this is a guy who misses bats. We're getting through the 7th, guys. We're going to be all right. Let's get us to 8th.
They've had their moments, though. Like even I think it's pronounced Kinnear or Kinnear. He's had moments where he came into the bases loaded in Jacksonville and got him out. And then he's also had moments where he's struggled to throw strikes. But you see the stuff.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's a lot of pitchers that have stuff. Can you throw a strike when it matters? Can you throw a good pitch when it matters? But I should have mentioned him because, again, you can see there's something there. Like there's a reason to be excited about him. But I don't even know if you need a closer, but you'd like to have number one, they don't have any lefties out of the bullpen that you like right now. So maybe that becomes something. But they are 15-0. We'll see. And I know we know they're not going to. I'm going to go ahead and say I don't think they're going to finish 62-0. So get that dream out of your head right now, Jeff. Get that dream out of your head right now.
I was holding on tight, buddy.
Would it be 62? How many do they need to win the national championship?
Oh, I haven't
3 regional, 2-5, probably not. So they're 65-0 is what you're looking for.
Well, after tonight, when they move to 16-0 and give Florida their 3rd loss of the year, we'll be buzzing with the idea and possibility of an undefeated campaign.
That's right. That's right, folks.
Yeah. By the way, first of 3 matchups at Dick Hauser's. Oh, well, this one's at Dick. The next, then they go to Jacksonville and Gainesville, and they screw this up every year, and I hate it. Why? By the way, Corey, I got a question. Why does Florida and Miami play a series together? That's a normal-ass 3-game series, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
And we can't.
Wait, by the way, Florida State and Miami play a series together.
Well, that's a conference series, so I understand that.
They still do it.
Right. But we can't get 3 on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday with Florida?
What's crazy about it, Jeff, is it was started stupidly, I don't know, man, 18 years ago, 20 years ago?
Yeah, 20 years ago.
How many ADs have rolled through Florida State since then? Not one of them can change it. Not one of them can say, and Michael Alford's a baseball guy. He can't be like, you know what, this is kind of dumb. Why at least do what South Carolina and Clemson do.
Yes.
Where they play 3 games in a row in 3 different cities. It's like Columbia, Charleston, Clemson. You could do Gainesville, Jacksonville, Tallahassee. Three games in a weekend if you want to. Or you could just be like grown-ups and say you're going to play a 3-game series in Florida this year. Next year they come to think about a Florida 3-game series in this past weekend would have been Florida.
Huge.
Yeah. I know.
And both teams, I would think, would want that because you want to be tested against the best. And these 2 teams were one of the last 4 standing last year. Look, they did it forever. I go all the way back to Joey Arnold when he was there. And I don't know. Florida, I think, was at fault for this originally. And if they weren't, I'm going to blame them.
Yeah, you should.
Smart. But I think they were. And I think that's how this happened. But once it was bastardized, we just needed somebody with a backbone to go, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I mean, I had the good fortune of doing color with Lee Bowen for a series back when it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And to your point, it was the best because it was 2 here and 2 there. And it happened. It was awesome. You got done with the Thursday, Friday, you hopped in the car, you drove 2 hours down to Gainesville. You're like, here we go. Saturday, Sunday, let's figure it out. And you really tested everybody's depth at every position and most notably the rotation in the bullpen. So you got a sense of what you were or were not. I hate this. I just hate this because it doesn't bring out the best in both teams. I know why they do it. Especially when they go over to Jacksonville and you've got a gazillion people over there. So that's to your point. You could just do the 3-game thing where you're here, then you're in Jayville, and then you're in Gainesville, and then you call it a week. But it sucks. I don't like it. You never get to see 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2.
Think about all the great starting pitching that, well, really both teams have had.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Luke Weaver did get to pitch against Florida because he used to be the Tuesday starter. So that's why they won all those games when they faced them that year. But yeah, like Sean Gilmartin never got to pitch against, Florida. Jamie Arnold will never get to pitch against Florida. Like it just doesn't make sense. And I think like the Jacksonville game is awesome. It's really cool. I don't know if you've ever been there for that game.
I've been. Yeah.
It's a really cool experience. But my complaint isn't even about the different cities as much as it is like just Tuesdays.
Yeah, Tuesdays, random Tuesdays.
Yeah.
I mean,
those are UNF games. Those are UNF Mercer games. They shouldn't be Florida State-Florida games.
Sullivan has actually at times treated this game like it isn't anything other than a game against Stetson.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
He'll roll a midweek, like middle innings guy out there to start.
Yeah,
Like,
I know. And it
sucks.
used to be they would win no matter who he threw out there.
That's
He
true.
could have pitched. He could have pitched, and he'd have held him to 1 run on 4 hits.
You remember the year? It was a few years ago. I think Florida State got out to like a 6-0 lead.
Yeah.
And I remember texting Tom, we're going to get our ass kicked.
Yeah. Almost got run ruled.
Yeah, next thing you know, it's like 15-6. Yeah, it was awful. Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV continues in a moment. Hey, do you even watch, Corey, the small conference tournaments?
I watch the final 5 minutes if it's a close game.
I do too.
It's fun because usually they're in the home team court that's got a chance to go to the tournament.
Yeah.
I watched Lipscomb and North Alabama.
Yeah.
And I was explaining to Stephanie, like, this is really cool because one of these teams gets to go to the tournament.
Right.
She's like, wait, the tournament's already started? I'm like, no. This conference tournament is at Lipscomb's gym. And if they win, they get to go to the NCAA tournament. It's a really big deal. And everybody's standing up for like the final 6 minutes of a game, a close game. Those are really exciting.
I watched when High Point punched their ticket, and I'm like, High Point is going to the tournament. I mean, people don't even. It was cool because they reacted like you would if you're High Point going to the tournament. And
what's High Point's nickname?
I don't remember.
I don't either.
I don't know.
The Sherpas isn't a bad name. They get to the highest points.
It'd be a great name.
Yeah.
Troy won the Sun Belt. Wofford won the SoCon. It beat Furman. And you get 4 conference championships tonight. The Colonial, I wrote them down for later on. Colonial Conference 12. By the way, so I know this isn't good for some deserving team out there. They could get completely screwed. And a lot of times this is what happens in these one-bid leagues when somebody who has no business even being in the damn tournament somehow goes on a run and wins it. Did you realize that Delaware, the Blue Hens,
buddy, of course, everybody knows that.
Delaware was 12-19 this year. They have made it to the conference final.
Come on, Delaware. Let's go.
The Colonial Conference, they had to play a play-in game to be able to play in the conference. So it was a 12-13. They barely won that, I think, in overtime. They won by 4. Then they turned around and knocked off like the 5 seed and the 3 seed. It's insane. Yeah. So the bottom line is if they win tonight against UNC Wilmington, they are going to the NCAA tournament with a sub-500 record.
All right, well, that's good. Well, no, they'll probably be in that stupid play-in game in Dayton, which I hate. I think if you win the tournament, your conference tournament, you get let at-larges play those games. I've never understood that. It also doesn't make – I'll be honest with you, I'm never going to watch Southern play Texas San Antonio in a 16-versus-16 game.
Right.
I'm never going to watch it. But I'll watch 2 bubble teams that barely got in play in that Dayton game. I've never understood why they subject this to a 16-versus-16. Let them play. Let them get into the tournament.
Yeah.
Give me Georgia versus Texas again, or Georgia versus SMU. Those are more fun, high-level basketball anyway.
I do. I think it's the parent in me, and you're a parent as well, of course. So like I used to get mad at the idea of bid stealers. Because we all know that most of these conference tournaments are just money grabs, but that's not true with the small conference tournaments. So like the mid-majors and so forth. But I still would get mad because somebody out there went 24-5 and they're not going to go to a tournament because they slipped up in their conference tournament.
They went 15-1 in the regular season in their conference and then don't get to go represent the conference.
I hate that for them. I do, but I will admit from a draw, in terms of a television draw, I'd much rather watch, the Colonial Athletic Conference Championship or the Horizon or the West Coast Conference or whatever's final than I would the ACC or the SEC or the Big Ten.
Yeah, when they're both going.
They're both going, and who cares? And they don't. I mean, look, the SEC tournament's filled with basically every team that's going to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
I don't really care to watch the money grab that is that.
Unless the Seminoles are in it on Saturday night.
Buddy, it's a nice draw.
Are they? They're not. They're on the opposite of Duke, right?
Yeah, it's like it does set up perfect for them to kind of be in a position to grab your attention.
Yeah, if they could beat Syracuse tonight, which look, they're all ifs with this team.
Of course.
Then you're playing SMU, who you just beat the next night. And then you got Clemson, who's already in. They're due for a letdown.
They're
all of a
tired.
sudden,
They want to rest.
Yeah, they're done. Then all of a sudden you're in the semis, Jeff, and you got some magic. You got some magic in your feet.
The magic has started at that point, and now you can't be beat because you believe.
And then Luke's like, wait, am I going to be a head coach in waiting? Is Leonard going to run it back? Is he going to leave after winning the ACC, or am I going to be an assistant on his team next year? By the way, we haven't talked about this at all. We talked about his press conference. I know we're at the end of the segment. We should also mention this isn't live, and Ira is on his way to Charlotte.
Yeah, he's
covering
there, yeah.
Leonard's last. That's why he's not here. I wonder what the turnoff rate is when I wasn't here compared to when Ira isn't here. You know what I mean? Like you're the constant. I feel like there's probably more people that see that Ira's not here and like, okay, I don't need to watch. I don't need to listen to Corey anymore.
I think that they probably tune in and go, well, thank God Cameron's still there.
Yeah, I'll listen because Cameron will carry it. Yeah, that's fair. It's 2/3 of the show, but it's still going to be good enough. But who do you think on the roster he keeps, and do you think he keeps anybody on the staff?
So this sounds a bit harsh, but when I jokingly asked him whether the couch would stay or not, the couch, the famed couch we've all sat on in the office, and he said, no, the couch is gone.
Yeah.
I thought that was bad news for Stan.
Maybe. I think the thing with Stan is we have no idea what the staff is going to be. I don't know if the support staff, coaching staff, if all of them are gone, if he'll keep some. You would think he'd keep one or two somehow, maybe not even an assistant, an on-court assistant, just for some stability in the lay of the land because he hasn't been here in 13 years. But it would be such a weird dynamic for Luke to be Stan's boss after Stan recruited him and coached him and has had a mentorship, really probably felt more like a mentor than anything for the last 15 years, to then flip it where Luke is his boss.
I don't think I would do that if I were Luke. And
I wouldn't either, and not because I wouldn't respect Stan and what he's done or what he knows. That would make me uncomfortable because I don't know that I could feel like myself if I have to worry about a person that I greatly respect that gave me my start in this business having to, like, am I going to dress him down in front of the rest of the coaches? I can't. It changes the dynamic, or I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. It'd be like Norvell. It would be like, Malzahn. It would be like Todd Graham being on Norvell's staff.
Right. Yeah,
not Malzahn, because Malzahn gave him a job, but Malzahn wasn't really his boss. Todd Graham was his boss that gave him his start.
Yeah.
To then flip it where now you're his boss and are dressing him down. It's a weird dynamic, a weird energy.
Well, and I just think it's completely normal and customary. You see it all the time to start fresh. I mean, start with your own guys. I couldn't believe when he said yesterday, and this lets people realize just how tough those first 24 to 48 hours are. They're good problems to have, I suppose, as he said. But when he said that he's been contacted by over 150 coaches about the possibility of being on his staff, I thought what was interesting and revealing about that is he said many of whom are friends, dear friends in the business, who you owe the time of day to.
Right.
So
even if you're not going to hire them.
Right. Yeah. You owe them a call back, Corey. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's like if you got a job and you had to hire just 3 people in this industry, and let's just say, you knew 100 broadcasters, and we were all sitting there trying to call you like, hey, man, I'd like to help out. I've known you forever. I've worked with you before. It's got to be so tough to know that the 99.9% of the guys you're calling back, you're telling them thanks for the inquiry, but no, it's not happening.
Yeah, but that's the reality of it, right? You've got 4. I think you've got 4 spots now, and you want 150 people want it. Who knows how many would even apply if they even would have an application process? So, and Dulkes is a guy that he knows. I don't know if he's bringing Dulkes or not, but he was his best friend when he was here. Mm-hmm. I think he got him his start in coaching. That might be something somebody he brings, somebody he trusts. It's gonna be. He's never done anything like this. Like, he's never been in charge of anything, and now he's in charge of a multi-million-dollar basketball program. I'm sure his head is swimming, and it's gonna be really interesting what he does these next 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah, I do like knowing that, and I asked him a question at one point. I mean, I wouldn't say that like we're buddies or anything, but I've known Luke over the years, just as you have, and when Bryce became in love with the NBA, I reached out to Luke at one point because Bryce loved talking about the Clippers and Golden State. He loved all these West Coast teams. And I was like, well, I know a guy that's with one of them. And that's when I started reaching back out to Luke. And somewhere along the way, we had conversations about Florida State basketball because he's always paying attention. He always cares.
Yep.
And he was like, well, if you ever get an opportunity to coach something like that, and he basically said, if I ever get the opportunity, I have a plan. I know what I want to do. I know what I think it should look like. I just don't know if that's ever going to be a thing. Well,
right.
I don't think he could have realized 2 years later it's a thing.
Yeah, he's here. He's the head coach of Florida State.
Here it is. All right, we'll get to headliner questions. We'll do so quick, fast, in a hurry in a moment. 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Hour number 2, Seminole headlines. Headliner questions coming your way in a moment. But first, our thanks to Dr. Birch Orthodontics. I know it seems like I purposely time it out this way, but I don't. Today was actually another day in which Clark was at Birch Orthodontics. Hey, it's just
for what?
Just retainers.
Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Just retainers. He just had to swing in there and get fitted for the. Yeah, that's all. That's all.
All right. Okay.
So we're good. The masterpiece is not quite complete, but nearly complete. And our thanks to Dr. Birch Orthodontics. She's excited for FSU baseball and FSU football and FSU basketball. There's a buzz in the air for her over there too. And
okay, good.
Yeah, she wants to know if we have any thoughts on FSU football. I'm like, we don't. We've been shaken to the core when it comes to Florida State football. I don't think any of us trust anything that we've ever looked at ever again.
Yeah, no. How could we? How could we possibly? So yeah, but it starts. When does it start? 2 weeks from now, right?
Well, no, 1 week from tomorrow.
1 week from tomorrow, we get spring practice.
I don't know if you and I are going to be allowed to be there.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope that we will be. That would.
Corey, honestly, that's a bad look if he doesn't.
It would be concerning, quite honestly, because you either believe in your principles of how you run a program, or you don't.
Correct.
And I would hate because you bring in some new coaches, and you have one bad year that all of a sudden you change the way you operate. That doesn't necessarily speak well of your belief in what you've built. That one bad year can make you change your policies. But that sounds like
self-serving, but it's not.
But it's not. It's more. I think it would go more to the heart of what we think of. What we think of. Or it would be disappointing.
Well, Corey, I think it would be easy for us to say. I mean, I get it. If I'm listening to this, I'm like, well, of course the media guys want the media to be there because they're in the media. But really, it has less to do with that and more to do with Mike's psyche.
Yeah.
To your point. And look, Mike, rightfully, I thought, laid out the reasons why he's always been pro media and pro inclusion in terms of access. Because he thoroughly believed in everything he'd ever done, right? He believed in the way they coached it, the way they taught it, and he wanted his players to get their just due for the hard work that they put in, right? And so suddenly you don't believe in that?
Yeah, you go 13-0, everything's good. You go 2-10, and all of a sudden, never mind, practice is closed. That's again, it sounds self-serving, and it is, but also it's less work for me. Right. I like getting up and going to watch practice every day for 2.5 hours. So it's less work. I'll just show up afterwards and talk to him. But it would strike at the heart of how, he had some foundational things that he talked about, and that was one of them. Just being completely transparent, opening, believing in the way he practiced, letting you watch how hard his kids work. And then if that didn't happen, and we have no idea if it will or won't necessarily, but that would be disappointing. And I would hope he would rethink that.
Yeah. And I would say we have the luncheon. That's next week, right?
That's Monday. Yeah.
That's Monday. So we have the luncheon on Monday. We'll know the answer to our question here on Monday. I'm sure he's going to reveal exactly what the policies are. He always does at that luncheon. I've always enjoyed that luncheon because it's a great chance to talk to his assistant coaches. Yeah. And this year, by the way, we're going to really be eager to talk to his assistant coaches because this is, it's all on them right now. I mean, obviously, ultimately, everything falls at the feet of the head coach. But, man, you've got a lot of change. The only reason I'm worried that we won't get to see it is I do wonder if they're worried that you've got a massive overhaul in terms of you're installing a brand new defense and to some extent a new offense. You've got a new OC and a new DC, and they're changing what you do. I wonder if they feel like it's going to be clunky and cumbersome, and like you're trying to install. It's not going to like you're hitting the ground running. If they're just worried about us seeing that, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't worried. I guess 2020 was different because it was COVID, but he wasn't worried about that then. He let us watch a QB battle.
That's
between Mackenzie Milton and Jordan Travis. Every throw either one of those guys made, we watched. So no, we'll see. I'm sure that would be a Malzahn thing if it happened, like a Malzahn suggestion. But I just hope it's just a suggestion. I hope Norvell, keeps his foundational policies intact.
Yay Sausage writes S Quinn 67. Gentlemen, with the emotions that came out over the weekend for Leonard's last home game, what do you set the win total over under for the ACC tourney? Go Noles. Let's kick some Gator ass tonight. S Quinn 67 class of 93. Listen, I will say this gives us a chance because you and I didn't compare notes here, but I felt similarly to you after I read your piece, and you did a great job with it as always, Corey. I thought it was emotional.
Yeah.
On Saturday, I got choked up a couple of times. One of which really kind of surprised me. Stan Jones was having a hard time in that last 5 minutes. The game is in the balance still with like 4 minutes to play, and Stan's fighting back tears. And it was impressive to me because he felt the weight, the magnitude of the moment, of the history of all of it, and they were coming down to the final few minutes. But Leonard doesn't always show a lot of emotion and likes to deflect and put things back on the players. But I think they did a good job, obviously, getting these guys to come back. His old teammates at Tennessee Martin, that was incredible. Obviously, it was a veritable who's who with players coming in from Florida State, Kentucky, Oklahoma State, Miami. It's just very cool. I enjoyed it very much to see Leonard get to be appreciated for what he had accomplished. And there's something great about the symmetry of 200 as opposed to 199. It just meant a lot to me that they get the damn win on that day.
Yeah, and I would have I don't understand why Sue Seminoles has a banner hanging up in that building right now, but Leonard Hamilton doesn't. It doesn't really make sense to me that they didn't do something like that for him on that day. But maybe it guarantees that they'll have like a Leonard Hamilton day next year, and that's when they'll unveil it. And I'm not saying they're naming the court after him or anything. They could, I don't know. But he needs to have a banner up. He won more games than Sue did. And Sue's great. I'm glad. I'm not saying she shouldn't have one up either. In fact, hers should be bigger. It's crazy how small it is when you see it compared to the banners next to it. But Leonard needs to have his name up there somewhere too. But yeah, I was watching the video because, man, like I came – my first year was Tony Douglas's junior year. So it was Jason Rich, that team, where they ended up – half the team got hurt. So it ended up being like Tony Douglas, Jason Rich, and Ralph Mims played 40 minutes a game every game, like the exact opposite of how Leonard built those great teams. That was my first year. I have a picture of Solomon Alabi holding Brady when Brady was 6 months old up at his shoulder, and Brady's a junior in high school right now. So I've grown up. I've it's been a long time covering this program, and Leonard's been really good to me, and so it was emotional for me too. And I did think they did a really good job. I thought they did a good job with the video board stuff during the game, after the game, the player tunnel, the little Q&A with Leonard. I thought it was all the right notes, and I hope he felt special and appreciated because he is. They did this, and they won the game, and that was the best they played maybe all year. I thought all that was fitting, a really fitting tribute for him for his final game at the Tuck, and maybe his final win ever.
Yeah, I thought so too. And Leonard is, and it's funny, and you captured it well in your column. I think that the reason when people hear those of us in the media who've covered this program for a long time, and I got emotional because I interviewed Leonard the day he was hired. He came on my show. It was the first interview he did. Dave Hart called me and said, "Hey, we've got him set up for you. Let's go." And I
did you have hair down to your shoulders still?
Oh, buddy, it was blowing in the breeze of the fan in the studio. It was unbelievable. I was like talking to Leonard and having to pull my hair over to the side. It's like, but I remember Leonard quipped with me on that day about, hey, I did some media too, and he was kind of jokingly going to come after my job if I didn't do right. Yeah, it was well and good, but you're right. I think the essence of the man is really what we were celebrating, like what a good human being he is and how he proved it around every turn.
Yeah.
Are there better basketball coaches than Leonard Hamilton? Of course there are. Was he a perfect coach? He was not. Were there stretches where they weren't good at all and it was very frustrating? Absolutely. Did he
do you like rhetorical questions? Yes, you do.
Yeah. So, but damn it, man.
Yeah.
He cared immensely and he was about the right things. And those kids, I'll never forget. I know you remember this too. When Leonard Hamilton teared up, choked up, kind of had to fight back tears when Derwin Kitchen graduated.
Yeah.
And that just is a snapshot of who he was, right? He knew how important in his own life it was to get an education to changing his family's future, right? And he knew what that would mean for Derwin, a guy who had struggled academically, who couldn't get into schools and really that's why he had to go off to the junior college out in Iowa and then come back and do all those things. That was awesome. And that's who he was.
And, there was a moment, I remember asking him that question because it was before Derwin's senior day. By the way, he said they only lost one senior day game in his entire tenure at Florida State, which is remarkable. It's 22-1. Is that?
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. He said the loss was to Duke. And I'm sure he didn't get that wrong. I didn't go back and double check it, but I remember Derwin was on the team, but not eligible, kept waiting for him to be eligible. And I asked him about Derwin that day that he was finally ruled eligible was a Friday, and they were playing weirdly at Georgia State on a Saturday, and him getting on the bus and the rest of the team didn't know that Derwin had been ruled eligible. He'd been practicing, but they were 8 or 10 games into the season. And Derwin walks onto the bus because he always told him, hey man, when you finally get to play, you're cutting your hair. So they all saw Derwin with a new haircut, and the whole bus went nuts and went and jumped and hugged him. And Leonard, thinking about that moment, he really started getting teary-eyed again. And that was just purely for the enjoyment of another person.
Yes.
In the life of another person. Not because Derwin actually gave him some length at point guard, good rebound. I mean, that all helped too, but he was going to make the team better. But it was for what it did for Derwin. And that, again, yes, we completely understand that Leonard Hamilton went to, I'm going to say 9. They only give him credit for 8, but 9 NCAA tournaments in 23 years. He was going to the COVID tournament. He might have gone to the Final Four with that team. But they were never an embarrassment except for 3 years ago. And they always competed. And he just had so much integrity and character and cared so much. He would sit guys in important games because they didn't go to class.
Oh, it happened sometimes when you were playing the best team in the league.
Much to the chagrin of the fan base and the media, he would make a point, but he's teaching lessons. That was his whole goal, was to teach lessons.
I asked him one time. He had suspended a player, even though it wasn't public. He didn't announce it. He never announced it. Guys just wouldn't be dressed out, or if they were on the end of the bench and you knew they weren't going in. But I remember asking. It was they played a game on the road against North Carolina, and I said, why did you this was off the record. I asked him why he suspended this player. And he goes, I didn't suspend him. And I kind of was like, well, he didn't play. Is he hurt? And he's like, oh, no, he's not hurt. He didn't go to class, and I have rules, and they know what the rules are. They suspend themselves when they don't follow them.
Yeah, right. And he lived that life, even in important games, even when he hadn't had a ton of success and hadn't made the tournament yet. He was still teaching lessons,
which was cool. Okay, now this guy is not at all excited about the Loucks hire, and he's a regular listener and contributor to the show, so I'm going to ask the question to be fair. He says, does Trick Noel, is Loucks an objectively weaker hire than Hamilton was? I'm disappointed. Would have preferred someone with college experience and head coaching success, even at a mid-major. You tag team that with 2-10 Mike Norvell, and I got to tell you, I'm not excited about either sport presently. I'll wait and see when, and everything's all good, I know. But Trick Noel's not impressed, Corey. Trick Noel's not happy.
Yeah, well, I think he's asking, like, is Luke an improvement over Hamilton, right?
Over Hamilton is currently.
When Hamilton was hired, that was a really nice hire. That was
a great hire.
Great at Miami.
Hire. Yeah, he had done awesome things at Miami.
Yeah. It's fair, man. He certainly doesn't have a pedigree like we talked about in the first hour, and I can understand trepidation. It can feel like you're kind of you're going discount shopping a little bit. Like who's the least expensive person we can get that might be good, as opposed to going and getting somebody that you know is good. But I don't know that you can. There's just no guarantee. You could go get a coach at a mid-major there's no guarantee he's not going to flame out either.
They did. Steve Robinson, he failed miserably.
But even that, like that was 30 years ago. I'm talking about like there are much more recent examples all over the country.
It happens all the time.
All the time. At places that maybe are better at basketball than Florida State traditionally, it happens a good bit where a mid-major will just a coach will just kind of, just flame out. And that's where you were going. That's where you were recruiting from as far as your coaching staff. You weren't going to get a high major head coach. That's off the table. Florida got the guy that was the coach at San Francisco, and that's Florida. So you're not. It's not a huge pond of great candidates. You're not getting Dan Hurley, and you're not getting Jay Wright. And so you took a shot, but this is a wild card, man. It's a wild card. We have no idea, none, if Luke can do this.
Yeah, I think with basketball, it's always been the most uncertain because you've seen guys have great success in one place, fail miserably the next place they go, become a retread, get another shot 8 years later, and whoop ass.
Yeah.
And you say, well, what happened at the stop in between? I mean, yeah, Florida got it right with Golden now, but look at the guy right before.
Yeah, right, from Louisiana Tech, who everybody loved. Yeah.
Who everybody loved. We've seen this time and again. Like Shaka and guys like that. We've seen there have been so many guys that you're like, oh, that's can't miss. Can't miss. He's a stud. And you're like, oh, maybe. We'll see.
Hoiberg at Nebraska. He was great at Iowa State, went to the NBA. They thought he was going to turn Nebraska around. They didn't even make the Big Ten tournament.
No.
They lost 5 in a row. So, and I think Hoiberg's he's proven to be a good coach. It's just, there's no reason to be in love with this hire. How could anybody be in love with it? But I don't know that there's any reason to just automatically assume it's not going to work either.
No,
that's how big a swing it is. That's how big the spectrum is.
Justin writes, gents, do you think that the ACC going to unequal revenue sharing was part of a larger move in college football towards a new future? It's probably headed this way anyway, but it seems like the big schools, and this is kind of a play on something we've answered last week, but I like the way he writes this, so I'll continue. The big schools in the SEC and Big Ten will take notice, push for the same unequal revenue sharing, of course. This may ultimately push the Vanderbilts, the Northwesterns of the world out and allow the networks to form sort of the NFL light super league that they've desired for a long time. Seems like college football's changes happen so slow, even though we think we know where it's going. What are your thoughts on this? So Corey, I asked Andy Staples last week that very question, basically. I said when I had him on, hey, seems to me like Ohio State and Michigan will watch very closely, just like Georgia and Alabama would watch very closely what goes on in the ACC, and Florida State and Clemson get their way to some degree, I guess, maybe in North Carolina or Miami, with unequal revenue sharing, and that what's going to stop them from going, no, man, get the hell out of here, Purdue, Illinois, Northwestern, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, you name it, right? Go through the schools that do not have the cachet, do not have the brand, do not have the pull that these other schools do. And why wouldn't they do it? He says he doesn't think that they will because that those commissioners has sold for years to their teams. Hey, look, I'll go out and make this the best league. I'll get you your money. We'll all be rich, but we have to stay unified.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's well and good. People say a lot of things, Andy. They say a lot of things, and then money gets involved, and all of a sudden that changes everything. So I'm not so sure that they're like, oh, yeah, great. Thanks, Greg Sankey. You've done a great job. I'll ignore the fact that Vanderbilt brings nothing to this conference.
Right. Yeah, I hear that, and I believe I think there is a chance that this propels things forward. But the ACC is so unique, man. Like the SEC has, I don't know, man, 10 really big boy football schools.
Yeah.
At least. The ACC has like 2.5, and it's known. So it just seemed completely unfair. Like imagine Alabama being in the ACC or Georgia being the ACC. They would have wanted this done a decade ago. So I just think it's different. Like the SEC is, it's got more big time programs than it doesn't. Sure. The ACC has 2 big time programs and 15 sort of irrelevant ones. Miami's not irrelevant. They just have been irrelevant, since
20 years.
Since the DVD was invented. So it's been a minute. But yeah, so that's why I think it's different. But I think the overall overarching point of the question is, will there be a super league with 40 teams? in the next 10 years? Who
Probably.
knows?
Yeah.
But could be. I wouldn't
Yeah.
put it. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But how can any of us know with certainty what in the world this sport's going to look like?
Scott D wants to know punt, pass, kick competition between Norvell, Link, and Loucks. Who wins?
Loucks, because he was a Division I caliber quarterback.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's Loucks.
Yeah. So he's definitely going to win the pass. Kick. Who? It's a great question. Who would win a 40? I think Norvell. I think Norvell's got him.
Norvell wins the 40. I would think Norvell's also. I don't know. Does Luke lift on a regular basis? He might.
Well, we talked about, after that comment he gave me in the press conference, we went to the side and talked about fitness for about 15 minutes afterwards.
Did you spend some time?
Well, he wanted to know my regimen, and I told him, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to start getting into that too. So I don't know that he lifts like I lift, but who does?
Yeah.
So it's a great question. I don't know. We'll ask him next time we see him how much he's in the gym. I
am curious, because I would say otherwise Norvell's the strongest of that group as well.
Yeah.
And I don't like, so I love you, Link, and you're in shape.
Yeah.
But there aren't many wins for Link out there.
And he's also the oldest. I think Link's in his 50s, like early 50s. Norvell's in his early 40s, and Loucks is in his 30s. So it ain't like we're talking about a guy that was. I mean, Loucks wasn't the point guard at High Point. He was a starting point guard that won an ACC championship and had 13 assists in that game. He's 6'5".
If he was the point guard at High Point this year, he'd be going dancing.
He'd be going dancing.
Great. Trailer Swift writes, gents, I was watching the baseball team, enjoying myself, and then had the thought, if FSU football didn't nosedive off a cliff last season, Miami would be traveling up to newly renovated Doak Campbell Stadium with the all-time series on the line. What thought angers you the most about last year when you recollect? Oh, man.
That's tough.
Corey, can I answer yours? I know yours.
Okay, let's hear it.
The offense.
Oh, yeah, sure. But that's almost too specific.
Well, I mean, it's just the offense, all of the offense.
No, even that's too specific, because 2-10 is when you really step back and think about 2-10.
It's unimaginable.
It's a humiliating embarrassment.
Yes.
13-0 to the snub, to then follow that up with the worst season in school history, and I'm going to call it that because of the expectations and the resources you have, man. It is an absolute embarrassment to put a product like that on the field.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's going to remain a problem for Mike for several years. I don't like, if they go 10-2 this year, people aren't forgetting 2-10.
They're also not going to trust that the following year is going to be great, because you've proven that you could have maybe the best team in the country when your quarterback is healthy, to then the worst team in the Power Four.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's unimaginable. It is an almost unforgivable sin.
I'm getting pissed off again, and I'm mad at that question. I don't want to do this.
Hey, we need some Tavello beer after
we'll
that
get some
question.
Of that. Yeah, no lie.
There we go. Some tall, cool, cold, delicious Tavello beer in Thomasville, Georgia. Tavello, of course, on board with us here at Seminole Headlines, but that's not why. That's not why we bring it up. It certainly helps, but it's not why solely. It started very plainly. Ira said, have you ever been up to Tavello in Thomasville? No. It's good. You should go. They make great beer. Okay, I will. Yeah. Found out that Maurice and his lovely wife are Florida State grads, sat down, bellied up, had the beer. It was delicious. Then I wanted to go again. That simple.
I'd like to remind people they got married at a Florida State football game.
Right.
I believe it was the Notre Dame game in 2014.
There it is.
The push-off, the great push-off.
Yes.
Or illegal screen, whatever you want to call it. So they are straight up Noles. He was a part of the basketball program. I think he might have been on the team. Like, these are Noles through and through. They're through and through, and it's not like they're out winning awards all the time at that place at Tavello. So even if you don't go to the brewery in Thomasville, order that stuff online, man. It's legit. It's legit. They're taking over the world.
Beautiful. And now they've joined forces with us, and we've taken over the world. So it's awesome.
So, exactly right.
There you go. More headliner questions forthcoming. Stay with it. Rolling on here with all of you guys and your questions, headliner questions. In fact, back to Facebook we go, Corey. Just so you know.
Okay, great.
What's up, fellas? From Tony. Generally speaking, why is it that FSU basketball has not been traditionally a popular sport amongst the fans? Well, I'm going to stop right there before I read the rest of the question. It's because they've often sucked, Tony.
Yep.
I think that's the fair way to address this. Like, there are long stretches of time in which the team's not any good.
Well, and look, man, we just got talking up his legacy and what kind of person he is. But when you're the head coach somewhere for 23 years, there were some stretches where Leonard Hamilton's teams weren't any fun to watch or cover or won games.
Yes.
A lot of them, when you go to the tournament, when you miss the tournament 14 years, that's a lot of not very good basketball.
It is. And that's been the frustrating part. And listen, we have seen what this place can be to the point where basketball people have declared it was one of the most hostile places for an away team to go and try to play. I mean, I'll never forget Jay Billis, who used to loathe this place, going on the air after our win over Louisville. And that was an electrifying atmosphere that night. Corey, you remember that. And he was just talking about this place is, I mean, Leonard's turned this into a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to come in here and win when the crowd is that way and the team is that good. I mean, they usually go hand in hand. But fans will show up if you're good. They will.
They did it in the early 90s with Kennedy.
Yep.
Even the late 80s with Kennedy, with George McLeod and Tony Dawson and those teams. And obviously, I'm sure they showed up at Tully back in the day to watch Ron King and Dave Cowens, and then they showed up with Trent Forrest and Vassell and that crew too. When you're good, they'll come. When you're not, man, just think about Mike Martin Jr.'s 2 years as the head coach on the baseball team. Those weren't great crowds.
No.
The Mike Martin, the end of his tenure when they were kind of always middling until they made that College World Series run, those weren't great crowds either. They're not what Lynx crowds are. You know what I mean? It's just you give this fan base belief, like any fan base, they're going to show up and be really loud. Virginia doesn't have great basketball crowds right now, and they won the national championship a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's and they have an arena that is second to none in the league. Shane writes, how much was NIL a part of the negotiations with Luke Loucks? I can't imagine this job is desirable for anybody without added NIL commitment.
Well, I think I agree with you on the most part. I don't think that's true for Luke Loucks.
Correct.
I think Luke Loucks was the guy that they knew it was always going to be attractive to, because look, when you've never been a college coach, you've really only been an NBA assistant for 3 years. He wasn't an assistant with the Warriors. He was like a developmental guy.
Yeah.
He was like ninth on the coaching staff.
Player development. Yeah.
Yeah. So he doesn't have a lot of experience as a college, as an assistant coach, period. And then you get offered this job, you don't really have a lot of leverage to say, yeah, that's great, but what kind of NIL am I going to get? Because it's his alma mater too. Like if this was Rice offering him a job, that would absolutely be something he'd be worried about, because he could sabotage his career if he goes to Rice and goes 5-24. At Florida State, it's worth the risk because it's his alma mater and he loves this place and loves this city.
Yeah, and he got a chance to be a head coach in the summer league and have some success there. And he coached the Nigerian national team. That was kind of, he had some moments where he's been the guy, if you will. But you're right, compared to most resumes, and he cited this yesterday. Look, there are a lot of guys who have been doing it a lot longer than me with more experience. And he understands that it's a hell of an opportunity. And I think you're right. I think he wanted to attack it because it's his alma mater, and he was excited about it. And I think FSU realized they could save some money because of it.
Yeah.
Sean writes, and this is the OG headliner, big game tonight at Hauser boys. Need to lock in. My question is, out of all the arms coming out of the pen this year, who do you have the most faith in thus far? Well,
I would say Martinez.
I was going to say Martinez too.
Martinez or Prescott. Both those guys have been really good, I think. They seem to throw strikes, knock on wood. But those are the two, I would think. Joe Charles has been good, but it's only been, I think he's only made a couple of appearances.
By the way, Chris McLeod is asking us about the checking of the pitchers as they come off the mound. Chris, this is part of what happened and started in Major League Baseball. It's carried down to minor league baseball and into college baseball. When pitchers come off the field, first base ump will check their hands to make sure that they don't have any illegal substances on them, sticky stuff as it's called in Major League Baseball.
Here's my issue with it, Jeff, is it's because it's college baseball, and I noticed these these things that don't make sense. They're inefficient. When a guy comes in from the bullpen, the first base umpire will make him take off his glove and check his hands.
Right.
And then when he's done pitching, as he's walking off the field, they make him do it again.
Yeah.
What do they think happened?
A little stuff under the brim of the cap.
Check the hat when he comes on. Like, don't check him twice after he's thrown 9. Okay, I checked you threw 9 pitches. Let me check you again.
Wasn't it your boy at Georgia that was over there cheating his ass off that got caught on film?
You talking about Jim Herrick?
No. He was writing checks for players.
Yes, he was. His son was.
That was always beautiful. No. I'm talking about wasn't it a Georgia pitcher a year or two ago where the stadium cameras caught him? He was.
Oh, I don't remember, but that sounds vaguely familiar. But I don't know if it was a Georgia guy or not.
I think it was, and if it wasn't, I just besmirched the poor Georgia program. Yeah,
that's fine. That's funny. Hey man, if you're not cheating, what are you even doing?
Yeah,
what are you even doing?
Right? You're not trying. R.A. Noles, gentlemen, a lot of talk about Danzy running track successfully, but is that Amari Williams also running the 400 relay?
No way.
That's what he said. And then he said, and with Gibson playing baseball, are we close to the Bobby era dual athletes filling out the rosters?
I mean, hey, man, Jeff talked about B.J. Gibson. Like, it is remarkable. Now, it's about to get real. Like, again, you're hitting JMU pitching and Penn pitching. Like, okay, you get Florida tonight. Let's see how you handle that. And let's see how you handle ACC pitching. But the fact that he's even competitive, having competitive at-bats, like getting down 0-2 and working walks, sack flying on an 0-2 pitch, like those things, to do that after, like, guys, he didn't play his senior year of baseball.
No,
he didn't have a high school senior year. He didn't play baseball for 18 months. He didn't play in the fall. And then he comes out, and I think they thought he was going to be the 6th outfielder. But injuries have happened. Chase Williams, Delamalulule, Plain. So now I bet he drinks.
Louis Ungulule is not able to.
He drinks Lagavulin, I bet. Now he's their starting left fielder and against Florida. So it's been a quick ascension. So it's remarkable what kind of athlete he obviously is and how good he is. It's not just athleticism that makes you a good hitter or can make you hit. I mean, it's right. Link said he really cares. He works really hard, and that's good to know. That might be his sport, honestly.
From the people I've talked to, they think it is his sport. That it will be ultimately, if he plays professional anything, it's going to be baseball.
Yeah, so it's smart to take this seriously.
He also has one of the highest bat speeds on the team. He's routinely exit velocity is routinely amongst the best on the team. It's pretty sick to think about. Also, for a right-handed swing, it's gorgeous, Corey. Yeah. It's a gorgeous swing. I love his finish.
When he hits it,
buddy.
It's tough. Yeah. It's when he hits it. It's like Bailey. Miles Bailey's a different cat, man. He's hitting 731 on balls in play. Yeah, I think 731.
You think that has anything to do with exit velocity?
So he's hitting. Max Williams probably leads the country in outs over 100 miles an hour.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. He'll ground out to the second baseman at 110. Yeah. But Miles Bailey hits it as hard as Max Williams does.
When you watch, Corey, I know you've done it, just you and me talking here because your son plays baseball and we've watched a ton of baseball. The thing about Max Williams' swing is my favorite part about it. It's so flat, man. Everything is so flat. He's always on top of the baseball. It's crazy. It's just, if you watch it from behind, it's one of the best swings on the team. It's not aesthetically as pleasing as some of the other swings,
right?
But that the flatness with which, and he lets the ball get deep in the zone. It's fun to watch. Tampa Tim says, what can Castellanos do from now until the start of the season to make Jeff believe in him?
Nothing.
Nothing.
There's nothing he could do.
No.
And that's fair though, right? Like there's nothing, nobody should have true belief in any of these new guys until they go out there and prove they're worthy of believing it.
Yeah, and I think he's decided me because I have been reluctant to jump on board the Castellanos train here. I didn't think much of him when he was at BC. I thought he was a guy that could provide headaches, because of the athleticism that he had. And every now and then he'd catch fire and get hot or something. But he was not much of a passer. He was wildly inconsistent. And I just didn't love him. But, I mean, I did admit that given what you're trying to run, he is a freak of an athlete who can really run the ball and has been productive doing so. So, yeah, it makes sense that you would bring him in. I wasn't against bringing him in. I just We'll see, man. We'll see. I'm like, well, pretty much what Corey just said. We'll see.
But I do love, and again, it doesn't matter if he doesn't play well, but he is really, really. It sounds like he's the leader of that, if not the team, at least the offense, and he takes it very seriously.
Yeah,
which I love that about him. He seems like a galvanizing personality, which is what they absolutely need on that side of the ball.
Justin writes, what's more likely moving forward from today? FSU baseball makes it to Omaha 4 of the next 5 years. FSU football makes it to the playoffs 3 of the next 5 years. FSU basketball makes it to March Madness 2 of the next 5 years. Good question.
It is. Probably the last one.
I think the last one makes the most amount of sense, although...
Especially if they're expanding the tournament.
If you're competent, and they should never expand the tournament. Anyhow, if you're competent...
It should be football.
It should be football.
Like, making the College World Series is hard. Even really great programs, it's hard the way it's set up now.
Yeah, you can get unlucky. Yeah, you really can.
But yeah, if you're competent in football in this conference and you get 2 automatic bids, so you just have to finish top 2 in the ACC with the money you're getting now. Yes, that should be the easiest one of those 3, or the most that should be the most likely of those 3. It's just you're talking about a team that just went 2-10.
Right.
So it's hard to know.
Nate wants to know if Leonard wins the ACC tournament, will Ira do an hour number 2 right after a shot of Don Julio on the air?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say yes for Ira. Like, that would be, and he should do it shirtless.
Well, he's going to draw the line there, Corey.
Probably, you're right.
But I will tell you, we will make him do the shot of Don Julio, and we will have him do the hour number 2. Hell, we may do it in unison.
Yeah, I mean,
let's go.
Tell us anything. I'll go stand in traffic for 30 minutes. I'll go do the. I'll lay down on Tennessee Street like that the old football movie, because it's. I mean, 5 wins and 5 nights. Yeah, the program. Yeah. Because 5 wins and 5 nights. Come on now. This team hasn't won 5 games in a month and a half. It'd be hard. They just lost 4 in a row.
That's why it's magical, Corey.
It would be magical. We've seen other teams do it. NC State would have fired Keats last year. They made a Final Four run, and now he's fired.
How about your boy couldn't parlay a Final Four run into a 2-year stay of execution?
Yes.
He got 1 effing year.
That's a tough one.
I mean, sweet Jesus. Keats, get it together. Hey, this is kind of nice. Grace writes in to say, hello, gentlemen. Can you give my dad, a loyal Seminole Headlines listener, Alan, R.A. Noles 71, a birthday shout-out? He means the world to me, and it would mean the world to him. Hashtag Go Noles.
Who was that asked that?
Well, that was from Grace.
Look, Grace, I'll be honest, we don't do requests. Next question. No, just kidding. Alan, happy birthday, buddy. Happy birthday. We're glad. And you seriously must have a very nice daughter that thinks highly enough of you to get on a stupid podcast and ask us to give you a shout out. So
it's a multimedia
really nice
event, Seminole Headlines. It's
that's
more
true.
than just a
it's
podcast.
More than just a podcast. You're right.
It is the terrestrial radio show.
Yeah.
It is on the internet. It is also on podcast. It is all over. It is taking the world by storm. So I understand, Grace. Happy birthday, Alan. And thanks for listening to Seminole Headlines. Speaking of which, we'll come back and wrap it up momentarily on 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Wrapping it up, we'll get to a few more of these. By the way, any question I don't get to here, I told you all this before, but I'm going to carry it over to the bonus hour.
Yeah, in the bonus hour, we'll have Ira on it, we hope, maybe even from Charlotte. You're talking about your bonus hour.
Yeah, you're talking about the bonus hour, which will be later this week, right, for us?
Yeah.
That's the Renegade Room bonus hour.
Warchant.com.
That's correct. That's a different bonus hour.
You're right.
This particular bonus hour is today, right after this show ends in mere moments.
Got it.
And I will get to some of those questions that we didn't get to here. Jerry says, if you could add 2 all-star players from the next transfer portal window that doesn't include a quarterback, which positions would you choose? He says he would take a linebacker and a defensive tackle.
I would take a defensive end and a defensive tackle.
I, too, would take a defensive end and a defensive tackle, followed closely by yet another offensive lineman.
Yep.
I would just forever be stockpiling on offensive line. I would do what the Chicago Bears did yesterday, which is in the last 48 hours, they brought in 3 offensive linemen, 2 guards, and a center. So, yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully they're bringing them in to start. But you might already have a starting 5 offensive linemen. I don't know who your starting defensive line is even going to be.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on this. I think first and foremost, I'd go defensive end and defensive tackle. I agree with you.
And if the kid from Tennessee is out for the year, for an extended period of time, not to be callous, but it's good that it happened when it happened. Jenkins, right? Because the spring window is opening up, and you need to go get another defensive lineman. That is priority number 1. If you're going to get anything out of the portal, you have to go get another defensive lineman, in my opinion.
Hey, I'm going to gripe for a second because I thought it was Bush League. Why do you roll that kid out there?
Well, it was weird. It was odd. The fact that he was out there was like, okay, maybe it's not.
But Corey, like you could tell that kid was shook when he got asked that question.
Yeah.
And why do you have him out there to field that question? Like, listen, for people don't know, that rumor had been out for a couple of weeks that he had been hurt working out. And, if you know that you maybe don't want to have an injury discussion, if you're Mike, you're like, I really don't want to talk about this right now. Because who knows, he may be back by the fall late. I mean, we don't know. But the bottom line is, like, you're going to get asked the question. Somebody's going to bring it up.
So at least prepare him to be like, hey, this is what you're going to say when you're asked that question.
Correct.
And maybe they had, and he still didn't handle it well. I would assume. I mean, Derek's pretty good at they're pretty good at their jobs. As far
I'm not calling Derek out.
No, but I'm saying like they. Yeah, I know what you're saying. But Norvell's always I don't want to complain about him making everyone available because he does, and that is something that he's always been really good at. But yeah, make sure that he knows that's coming. Like, that people care if he's hurt, and that rumor is out there, and you're going to be asked, so have an answer ready.
I thought it was very strange. Chris writes, am I the only one who finds it strange that we announced a new basketball head coach and had a press conference while the season's still going on? They couldn't wait one more week after they lose in Charlotte.
Well, yeah, so if they lose on Tuesday, you could announce Luke on Wednesday or Thursday or whatever you want to do it. But I really do think, time is of the essence, man. The portal opens up in like 12 days. Yeah. He's got to hit the ground in a full sprint. So who cares? We know Leonard's leaving, and now we know. And I just like that they did it. They let Leonard have his day, and Luke wasn't in the building. But I think maybe it was sped up because the news got out there. Maybe they didn't quite want to do it like this. But once everybody knew that Loucks was the guy, what's the purpose of holding it up? Get it done, get it over with, let Leonard finish out his career however it finishes out.
I did think it was strange, too, but I understood.
It was weird timing. Yes, it's absolutely weird timing. I'm not saying it wasn't.
Yeah, and I also think that it's got to be weird for Luke, who has immense respect for both Leonard and Stan. And like you said, he's trying to put together a staff now. He's also – I mean, when I brought up the couch question, I think it's kind of funny because literally that is part of it too, right? That's now your office, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's like when do I get to go sit down at my desk and start making these calls instead of sitting in the parking lot in the passenger seat while my wife drives me around to places?
Yeah, or I'm crushing a Gordo's.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta kind of do something here. We're out of questions, Corey. We did well. We only have 2.5 minutes left. Do you think any parting words of wisdom?
No, but again, I think we're going to get back. 2 weeks ago I wasn't here. This week, Ira's not here. Right. We haven't gotten to be in studio much lately, but it's all coming. It's all coming. Spring practice next week. We'll get to talk to the coaches on Monday. And so Tuesday, we should all theoretically be in studio. And then headlines is going to hit full steam ahead. I mean,
well, and if it doesn't, tough luck. It's the off season.
Yeah, you're getting what you pay for. You don't pay a dime for this thing, so you'll just get what you get and be happy with it. But yeah, I am excited that spring football's here, man. That's going to be next week.
I'm really hoping we get to see it. I just have a weird feeling we might not. I don't know that. I don't want to assume that. I just have a suspicion that we're being set up for limited access.
Well, then you know what, Mike? The gloves are coming off, my man. Well, full swing ahead now. I'm not pulling any punches.
I will say, by the way, the thing he fears the most is speculation about injuries and the like. If you don't have open practices with very strict rules that suggest you cannot talk about injuries,
Yes, correct.
then it becomes a free-for-all at that point. It's true, though. It's true, Corey. Like, all gloves are off at that point because the second you hear from somebody at practice, and we all have sources, and somebody says, look, they may have lost so-and-so for the year today, what's to keep me from going on the air, or you to write, or people on the message board to say, hey, man, I heard today that they may have lost their right tackle for the season. You have no other way of knowing. You can't – I mean, look, this is what – it'll be wild speculation.
It'll be the Wild West. It'll be the Wild West, Mike. You don't want that smoke.
Mike, if you want bedlam –
yeah.
If you want rumor mongering.
Yes, that's coming your way. That's coming. By the way, for people that go to the baseball game tonight, if you get a chance, if you're in the third base line, I don't know how often you've done this, Jeff, or talked about it. Turn around and look at that new facility. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be breathtaking. I can't believe how nice that thing is going to be. It looks incredible.
Well, it better.
Well, yeah, a lot of money going into it. I would prefer an offensive line that's all going to the NFL with that money, but I get it, and it's a long-term play, and they have done a remarkable. Hopefully, it'll be ready soon, in the next few months, but it's really, really nice to look at.
When I went over there at the start of the season, and then again for a couple of these games that we've had at home since, you're right. Every time I go up those steps and I look over, I'm like, damn. Because you know why, Corey? You and I were sitting there commenting on all the rebarb and dudes standing around forever. And, and then all of a sudden we're like, holy moly.
It's sprouted up. It's incredible to look at. So go take a look, folks. It's really nice.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for nothing, Ira. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace. Bonus hour coming up.